rent. Every time I turn around, y'all keep telling me that the rent is too goddamn high. Every time that I turn around, y'all keep telling me that the rent is due and it's too goddamn high. Here's a question that I have for you guys. Is rent control coming, and would you actually like to see it? Matter of fact, let me ask you another question. Do you think that rent control is actually a good thing? Make sure you hit a like for the YouTube algorithm, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications.
The rent is too damn high.
The housing market is a catastrophe.
Record rental prices across the United States.
And something's got to give.
Living in America is freaking ridiculous right now.
I can't afford any of these apartments.
$1,800 for a one-bedroom apartment.
$1,400 for 485 square feet.
I guess I just live in my truck.
Over a third of Americans are renters, and if you're in that category, you probably don't need to be told that the rental market is out of control. The question is, can anything actually be done about it?
Let me ask y'all a question. A lot of y'all, when I tap into y'all in the morning, a lot of y'all live all around the country. Some of you guys are in Texas. I know a lot of y'all is over in Florida. It's a bunch of people over in New York. I know it's some Raleigh, North Carolinians in this bitch. I know it's some people over in Detroit, Ohio, Tennessee, Los Angeles, California in general. I know I got some Vegas people in here. Shout out to my people over there in Arizona. I know y'all live all over the country. Some of y'all live in some of the most liberal cities ever, such as Portland, Oregon, Seattle, so on and so forth. I see my Kentucky brethren is in the building, right? In your part of the country, is the rent too damn high? I'm going to be reading Super Chat shortly, don't worry. In your part of the country, the DMV, is the rent too damn high?
A historic wave of tenant organizing, unlike anything we've seen in decades, has found one answer: national rent control.
The tenant movement is absolutely within striking distance of rent regulation at the national level.
But it's not just tenants who are organized. This is also a story about how some of America's biggest landlords, banks, and private equity firms are hiding behind innocent-sounding front groups, all while pooling their money to keep your rent high.
I moved into Waldo Heights in 2018, so I've been here 5 years now. And every year...
Where the hell is Waldo Heights? Where's Waldo Heights? I'm just curious. Do y'all know where a Waldo Heights is?
Here, since I've been here, my rent has increased. Every time my rent is
Super
raised,
Chat shortly.
I'm at a crossroads of being evicted.
Millions of renters like Val are trapped in a rental market that's built to empower abusive landlords who can raise rents each year while allowing conditions to get worse and worse.
What defines an abusive landlord? What defines an abusive landlord? I'm curious. I find that there is a misunderstanding on both sides of both the landlord and the tenant. Dark skinned man, I'm going to talk about that tomorrow. I find that there's a disconnect between the landlords and the tenants, right? You guys have heard me multiple different times regularly to talk about the fact that I do not raise the rates on my tenants. Once a tenant goes into my property, as long as I'm able to control the costs, I do not raise the rents on my tenants. I could. I probably should if I'm just looking at it purely from a business perspective. But I think that you can find a middle road between being a good landlord and being a great businessman. Being a good landlord, I found personally that not trying to maximize profits, but instead building relationships has allowed for me to be a lot more successful than just trying to maximize profits. I found personally that not trying to maximize the amount of money that I get from rent, but instead trying to maintain a phenomenal relationship, long term always pays off much better. I don't have any turnover. I don't have any complaints. The tenants actually maintain the property really, really well. We communicate. We have a great relationship. I take care of things immediately. If there is anything, which they rarely even call me, they probably call me maybe twice a year, tops. And that's for only the big things. A dishwasher went out, furnace problems, something like that. But they never ever call me for anything that they can maintain themselves. As a matter of fact, I got a video on my other channel, probably from a couple years ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, where I took y'all to view one of my properties and I showed y'all. And one of my tenants was actually on there, and he was showing the people how he had redid the entire garage. He literally put thousands of dollars into redoing the garage. I didn't know about it. I didn't complain about it. It was a phenomenal redo. This dude had redid it as though he was going to be there for the next 20 years. And I think that he will be there for the next 20 years. I think that him and his family is going to be there for the next 20 years. We have a phenomenal relationship. And so I think it's a really good balance that you can strike. And I talk about this inside of the Patreon. Link is in the description as well as pinned to the top of the chat. But I'm always curious as to what you guys think is a bad landlord or a greedy landlord. What do y'all think that means?
The mice, the roach infestations.
Uh-oh.
Sometimes they don't pick up our garbage.
Now okay. I didn't know the context. Thank you for the context. I do think that having mice and a roach infestation is fucking egregious. Now, that is a problem. When you're not picking up the trash, when you have a mouse infestation, when you have a roach problem, yeah, I can't fuck with it. I can't do it. Nope. I don't want no properties in the hood. I don't want no Section 8 housing. I don't want none of that shit. Yeah, I agree. All right. I get it now. I apologize. I get it now.
When I first moved here, I was told that the security gate was going to be fixed. The gate is still not fixed. And so people come in and they sleep in our hallways. I'm afraid sometimes to come in my building at night.
I don't like that.
My landlord is Landmark Realty, corporation based in California.
Look at the brochure.
They don't care. They just don't care.
Since the last financial crisis, rental units are increasingly owned and operated by corporations like Landmark that are accountable, first and foremost, to their private investors. For tenants like Val, legal protections against abusive landlords are often limited. But she discovered one powerful way to fight back.
So me and my neighbor, my best friend down the hall from me, we just said one day, she was like, let's call KC Tenants. And I said, okay. So I called and I left a message on the hotline.
This is my first time seeing this. I've never seen this video before. Somebody recommended it to me in my email.
And a couple of days later, I got a phone call back.
A group called KC Tenants were fighting to stop eviction hearings at the Jackson County Courthouse.
Evictions will kill people like me.
Charged crowd packed City Hall for more than 3 hours. The yellow shirts in the room are tenants, each with their own personal story.
In a national housing crisis where rent inflation has vastly outpaced income growth, groups like KC Tenants have given their members power to take on their landlords.
We have written and passed a tenant's bill of rights. We've won free lawyers for every tenant facing eviction. We've organized buildings and neighborhoods. And just recently, we elected 4 members of city council.
Okay, listen, I got a problem here. Okay? I don't agree with slumlords. I don't agree with slumlords at all. I think that they should be taken to court. I think that they should be held accountable. I think that there needs to be laws that hold slumlords accountable, because if you cannot maintain a property, according to the standards that the city sets, I will tell you this: every property that I own are in cities that actually come through and they do an inspection of the house every single year. Every property that I own, I'm in a single families. I only do single families. Who knows? I might do, I want to get an apartment. I'm thinking about getting into 2 apartments eventually. I love single families. I'm only doing it because location is the number one rule when it comes to real estate. They have to come out and they have to do an inspection of the property inside and out. As wild as that may seem, they have to do an inspection of the property inside and out. That is a part of the agreement when you designate it as a rental property within these particular cities. Got a fucking mosquito. I don't like that. Now, the one thing that I don't agree with is you can't stop me from evicting you if you're not paying your fucking tenants. I mean, if you're not paying your rent. This is where I think it goes too far, because it's always imbalanced on both sides. You can't just be a good property owner and make sure that you take care of the property. You got to be a fucking slumlord. On the other end, they advocating for you to stay inside of a property that you're not paying for. Usually, if you don't like a property, then you would move out into a different area or a different property that better suits your needs. I don't understand this. Why is it always so extreme on both ends?
And that movement seems to be growing.
Places like Louisville, Kentucky, Bozeman, Montana, Cape Girardeau, Missouri.
The current surge in tenant organizing is the most significant since the 1970s, and it's allowing renters to fight for the kind of big relief that only the federal government can enact.
There are millions of tenants across the country being squeezed by landlords like Landmark, and our federal government is bending act. That's right. We can fight back by winning rent control for everyone at Waldo Heights and for tenants across.
This is stupid because it goes against
When
capitalism.
Landmark Realty secured a mortgage for Val's building in 2014, their loan was actually backed by the federal government. Corporate landlords like Landmark often benefit from lucrative loans through Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, government-sponsored enterprises that purchase mortgages from banks and set terms for them. With 1 in 4 apartment units across the country financed in this way, the government is essentially in business with our landlords.
Yep.
But that may be just the leverage that renters need.
We want to see every dollar of federal financing conditioned on a set of tenant protections. If you're borrowing on really favorable terms, that money is backed by public dollars, you should be on the hook. You shouldn't be able to increase your rent 20% and evict a whole lot of tenants to maximize your profits for your investors.
If you don't like what it is that's happening, then either you need to go and get you a mortgage so that you can be controlled by the mortgage company, or you need to go and find a different place that you want to live in. I don't really understand what the problem is. Now, I do know that there's some gray areas. There's some long-term people. If this person can't be here, older people, so on and so forth. But if you don't like something, I think that that's what the free market is supposed to be about, right? It's the idea that I can go and live somewhere else because I don't like what the fuck you got going on, and nobody else is going to come here, which then force them to meet the expectations of the market. Otherwise, they're going to go out of business, right? If you don't like what the fuck is going on there, then you can leave. The market dictates the rates. And in order for him to be able to compete, he's going to have to bring it up to snuff at the very least in order to compete with other places. That's then siphoning off all of the different people that actually want to live there. There's places that have vacancies out the roof, and then there's places that have a waiting list for when somebody else moves out. That's the free market. That's capitalism, no? Let's continue.
What we want to see is them say, if you're borrowing from a government-backed enterprise, you can't increase the rent more than 3% year over year.
Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are regulated by the Federal Housing Finance Agency, or FHFA. Thanks to the work of tenant organizers, the FHFA is seriously considering policy along these lines. But there's just one problem. Tenants aren't the only ones who are organized.
Motherhood Marvel said, you can't leave work if you broke, but you can go and get another job. You can go and get another job.
We're here at the National Multifamily Housing Council because the rent is too motherfucking high. They've spent.
Nobody forced you to live there. I don't really understand. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of people that live in New York or people that live in California. Now, when I go and visit California, it's funny because I'll go and stay in like $1 million house or something like that, right? And it'll be off of a beach and something or whatever, right? And everybody is living close together, and it'd be like different people are basically renting a room. How it is in California is that most people have roommates, or most people have a bunch of people living together, and they all rent out a room. They don't just like have their own place. Most people in California don't live alone. They live with somebody else because otherwise they wouldn't be able to afford where they are. And then I talked to a guy, and he was he was in Venice Beach, and I'm overlooking the water. And I'm talking to a guy, and he was like, I said, bro, why do you live here? Because I asked him what he did, and I said, why you live here or whatever. And he said, man, look at the water. Look at the location. Look at what's going on. I can't, and I would never live anywhere else except for right here in California overlooking the water. I could just walk here. I can ride my bike or whatever, so on and so forth. I said, but it's too expensive. I know. I fucking hate that or whatever. I said, so why don't you move to a place that's actually more conducive for your budget? I don't feel like I should have to. I should be able to stay wherever it is that I want. Okay, well, what do you want? Either you can complain about the circumstances or you're going to leave and go and do something about it. The rent is too damn high. You have a whole country to pick from. You have a whole country to be able to pick from of where it is that you want to live. If the rent is high there, then maybe you should go and live over there because you do not deserve or is owed anything. What are we talking about here?
So much of their time lobbying to make sure that rent protections don't exist for people like us.
Let me guess. The people like us is black people, right?
Landlord industry groups like the National Multifamily Housing Council spend millions lobbying Congress and federal agencies to oppose rent control. Since the start of last year, the NMHC has spent almost $10 million lobbying against it. The NMHC's members include major banks, private equity firms, and some of America's most notorious corporate landlords, like Greystar, Avalon Bay, and Blackstone. Blackstone is the world's largest private equity firm, and by some accounts, the largest landlord in the US.
Ooh, remember when I did that breakdown on Blackstone, y'all? Y'all remember that a few weeks ago?
In recent years, private equity firms like Blackstone have increasingly been buying up housing assets, often with lucrative loans backed by Fannie and Freddie. Tenants have complained of rent hikes, evictions, and faceless corporate landlords unresponsive to repairs. The UN even accused Blackstone of worsening the global housing crisis by buying up properties and hiking rents across the world. Meanwhile, Blackstone CEO Steven Schwartzman earned $1.3 billion last year.
Let me back up for a minute. Hold on. Wait. Can we confirm that? Can we confirm that? Blackstone CEO made 1.3, not million, billion. Is that true? I know y'all keep on saying that you should never work for anybody, work for yourself. The Blackstone CEO made 1.3 billion with a B, not an M. Is that accurate? Give me a second. I got to look this up. Steven Schwartzman's get another $1 billion haul, another one. It was another lucrative year for Blackstone CEO, who took home more than $1.2 billion in compensation and dividends. Mr. Schwartzman's base salary was the same as it's been for years. The base salary is $350,000. The bonuses and the total compensation wind up being $1.2 billion. Fuck a rapper. Fuck a basketball. I don't know what the fuck we doing. Look, yo, we having the wrong conversations out here. I just got completely thrown off for the whole fucking article. We having the wrong conversations out here in the community. This is another, this ain't the first one. This is another $1 billion haul. I did not know this. Listen, I knew that total compensation in the packages was egregious, but I didn't know it was fucking that. We are leading our, y'all about to make me pivot. We leading our children into the wrong industries. Fuck liberal arts. This is why I keep telling y'all that the average is skewed. When y'all look at the average earnings of white men, it's not that the majority of white men are making it. It's one white man that made $1.3 billion that just fucked up, skewed the average and making you think that white people made more. He made $1 billion in a fucking year. And you know what the funniest part about this whole thing is? He not even gonna pay taxes on the overwhelming majority of it. He gonna pay taxes on the $350,000. That's his base salary, and he probably keeps the rest of it. The other $1 billion, the 1.2, he probably keep the other 1.2 in equity so that he never has to actually pull from it, so he never pays taxes on it, takes a loan out on it on a very low interest rate in order to prevent himself having to give $750 million, $650 million over into the federal government. Shit. That dude probably paid $1 million in taxes and made $1.3 billion. I ain't never heard of no shit like that. I don't think that I've ever heard of anything like that in my entire life. I did not know this. That made me feel small as fuck. That made me feel so small. We over here talking about spending $100,000 a month and all of this other type of shit. We focused on the wrong things, bro. We are focused on the wrong thing. We over here fighting each other. We keep trying to talk shit about each other, having smoke for each other on Instagram and shit. And this nigga just stealing all of the fucking money right up under our noses. Instead of us working together to try to figure out how it is that we can get some money. And I ain't even talking about on no black shit. I'm talking about just in general as a people. Just people. We up here fucking distracted as hell. Y'all over there keep talking about reparations. This motherfucker just got $1.3 billion. Fucking reparations. $1.3 billion. Good Jesus almighty God. I can't even, my brain it just don't register. That is $1,300 million. That is $1,300 million. I honestly, like, if you start to really put that shit into perspective, that is $1,300 million. That's a lot of money. Like, that shit don't blow your mind. Like, $1,300 million in 1 year? That shit don't change your focus. It's like you don't walk outside and be like, what the fuck? Like, you don't just be looking at your closet or looking at your grass. You see a fucking crackhead walk by and then he throw a bottle on your grass, and you don't just be thinking like, damn, $1,300 million. What the fuck are we? What am I doing here?